Sri Lanka, A Journey Home was a one-hour documentary produced by Global Television after the devastating tsunami in December 2004. Mervyn Mediwake took his daughter Anne-Marie to see his homeland and to bring aid. Now a newscaster with CBC, Anne-Marie, who used to work here at Crossroads, was experiencing this for the first time. I'm so glad I happened to catch that documentary. And now I have the privilege of meeting her parents, Mervyn and Muriel Mediwake, here from Oakville now. But boy, have you been around. I am so looking forward to telling this story. And the first thing that stood out to me was a group that has a very unusual name. Among many other things, you're part of a Toronto group of expatriate Sri Lankans, SL4 Given. Right. SL4 Given. Tell us what that's about.
SL4 Given is the full name is Sri Lanka Forgiven. As you probably know, there's about 300,000 Sri Lankans here in Greater Toronto. And we went through about 30 years of ethnic problems there, fighting. And most of these people have come here. And then while the war was going on, a group of Christians, expatriate Sri Lankans, we got together and we asked them, what can we do for our own land? We're out here. So we thought, okay, we're going to really promote forgiveness. Because without forgiveness, there's nothing. You just can't do anything. People were talking about reconciliation, but how would you reconcile if you don't forgive? So we got together and we're trying to bring the Sri Lankan community together. It's been a success. We've gone back and had a great meeting with ministers back in January in Sri Lanka. And that's the story of Sri Lanka Forgiven. We want to bring the forgiveness that God promoted, Jesus said, to the greater community, and we believe that will bring in good results.
Wow. So entrenched bitterness from 30 years of ethnic war isn't too much for God's forgiveness.
No, certainly not.
Wonderful. Let's start the story at the beginning. I want to hear how Sri Lanka's doing now, because you're so connected there. But really, Muriel, you're Scottish.
I am, yes.
And you must have given your mum, in particular, some gray hairs with your adventure.
I'm afraid so.
Tell us where this started.
Well,
this romance.
Well, I was born in Aberdeen and brought up there. And when I became a teenager, I started to rebel a little bit. You know, we had a fairly strict upbringing, and so I wanted to go to London, and I always say to find fame and fortune, and that's where I met Mervyn.
Do you say?
And
there he is.
I can only imagine what my mother must have felt when I told her I was marrying a Buddhist.
Did they come to the wedding?
Well, I was hoping you weren't going to ask about that, because I was very bad. I phoned her the night before I was going to get married and told her, and the reason, of course, I did it was because I knew that they would not be in favor of me marrying a Buddhist. That was the biggest thing. And so I arranged everything, and then I told him. But I bless my mother, and I thank God for her, because, you know, after she realized she wasn't going to change my mind about it, then she said, well, promise me you'll come up the next day to Aberdeen.
Oh.
And so we did. And even though it was very hurtful, you know, for her, she threw a little reception for us, and she really showed the love of God to us. And that spoke to my heart more than anything else. And I always am forever grateful for that.
It was a good thing that she had this reception, because we got to Aberdeen about 4:30 in the morning. And we took a taxi from the train station to the house. And there was Mom, Muriel's mom, sitting there. And the first greeting I got was, so you're the young man who broke my heart.
Oh, dear.
That was a greeting for me. But eventually, as the years went by, she just loved me. She just loved me, and she was a fantastic lady. She just really was.
Power of love and prayer and God sending influences in unusual ways.
Yes.
Just in the path that you followed. We're going to have to really fast track. You would spend time in Aberdeen. You were studying there, studying agriculture.
Right.
But then you went back to your homeland, and there was a real tug there, Merv.
Yes, I think I was at North of Scotland College of Agriculture and University of Aberdeen. The reason why I did that was when earlier on my relationship with my dad wasn't all that good because he was a strict disciplinarian, as headmaster of a school. And my mom had died when I was 9 years old. So he wanted to make sure that we went the right way, so it was a little hard. But anyway, so eventually we kind of mellowed up and he said, you know, why don't you come home now? So I asked him, what do you do? And, you know, we are landowners. He said, the best thing for you to do would be to do agriculture. Come back and do that. So I went into enroll in this college in Aberdeen, and that spent about 3 or 4 years out in Aberdeen.
Well, you would end up in a 5,000-acre plantation in what was Ceylon.
Yes.
Everything, I mean, you had servants, you had all
kinds of stuff.
Accoutrements of success, and that would all fall apart.
Yeah.
You would find yourself, really, and I am pushing you to a fast track. At this point, Muriel's back on track with the Lord and praying that you can get out of a very troubled Sri Lanka now. You would end up in Saskatchewan in a prodigal son scenario.
Right.
You were looking after pigs.
I was. I was supposed to come to look after a farm with 5,000 pigs and some 8 or 9 people. This was in 1973, and it was mechanized, not like today. But when I got here, I found out I had to send Muriel and Naomi and Amory, who was only 6 weeks old, to Muriel's parents in Glendale, California. And I came by myself and to find out.
With 47 cents in your pocket.
Yeah.
47 cents.
That's all we had, because the government, first they wouldn't let me go because they said to me that I was technically qualified, then they wouldn't let me go. But I found out that was not the case. So they let me go, but they froze a bank account. And my parents sent us a ticket. And they allowed, I think, some 27 pounds or something for me to go. And so anyway, by the time I came, and I found that the railways were on strike and to Regina. And eventually, the long and the short was that I had to buy one first-class ticket that was left in Air Canada. And by the time I paid for that, and then I got to Regina and took the Greyhound bus to Gull Lake, Saskatchewan, and I got off with 47 cents in my pocket. No wife, no kids, no family, no food.
And a lonely bunk.
Oh, yes.
Where you were working. How did God meet you there?
Well, I felt because, like you mentioned, when I left there, I was a superintendent of an estate, and everything's done for you. And
by the way, born into a high caste family, and
the Buddhist priests came from our families. But anyway, so my youngest uncle actually was a high priest. So I got there, and while I was going, my future employer came in his huge black Cadillac and picked me up, and I thought, oh, it's nice, someone's driving me around again. So while we were going, he said to me, you know what, I promised you you'd be here as a production manager, but I've fallen into trouble, so I have only one man working now and about 250 pigs. So he still didn't tell me that I was going to be the pig man, but anyway, I went out there and I went to the pig barn, and no pig should live like that. A lot of the people say, you know, pigs are dirty. They're not. I have to speak for pigs. I specialized on them. They will not defecate or urinate where they sleep. So they're clean animals, but these animals had to eat from their muck because the feed was falling automatic thing. So I took compassion on him, and I worked for a whole day, and I was kind of cleaning the barn. I hadn't done any physical work for a long time, and so my hands were bleeding. I went to sleep, I couldn't sleep. And I felt at that time, you know what? I've fallen below a payment level. But I always remembered Muriel telling me that whenever she had a problem that she could not bear, she talked to her God, and he always had an answer. I didn't respond to her at the time she told me this, but now was the time there was nothing to do. So I said, maybe I'll talk to her God. And the pride I had, well, Muriel's not here anyway, so she won't have to tell me, I told you to do this long time ago. But I did. I said, I didn't know how to pray. I said, God, if you're there and if what Muriel said is true, I just give everything up. See if you can take my life and make it a better job. And he did.
The next morning, a Baptist minister just happened by with a Bible for you.
Right.
Asked if you were a Christian, and I was moved that you were forced. God gave you an opportunity to confess your new faith,
right,
which is so important. You read the whole Bible in a day and a half,
yes,
and then fully surrendered your life,
yeah,
based on what you'd read to the Lord. A farmer moved on. This farmer moved on. You moved into the farmhouse. The family joined you. You had Bible studies in the house.
right.
And tell us where you would end up in terms of your career. You're just going to have to do like skipping rocks.
Right. From when I was in Lanigan, Saskatchewan, that's where, rather in Shawinigan, Saskatchewan, this was where I worked and lived in the bunkhouse, and then I got the house. So I met another person, and they took this man that I met in Saskatoon had gone to the same college as I was in Aberdeen, and he was actually the general manager for Western Hybrid Swine, the largest pig farm in Western Canada.
Oh.
And he offered me a job, and I became a production manager, and eventually ended up becoming the production manager. Moved on from there to Brooks, Alberta, and I got to be the production manager at a feed mill there, and then eventually ended up becoming the sales manager. And so God kept moving me.
You are now retired from the #1 agricultural company in the world.
Right.
Whoa.
Archer Daniels Midland.
Some story. Have you written a book yet?
No, I haven't. My kids keep telling me, Dad, don't tell us the story. Write it so that our grandkids will know.
Let's meet the family. We have a few family pictures, and then we're going to just take a peek at your documentary.
Okay.
So this is the whole family. You have 3 beautiful daughters.
Correct, yes.
What are their names?
Naomi, Anne-Marie, and Becky.
They all love the Lord.
They do. I'm just so blessed. I'm just so thankful.
And here we have the spouses.
That's correct, yes, and some of the grandchildren.
Yes, and of course we all know that of those 10 grandchildren, 3
That's
are
the
triplets.
newest grandchild.
That's the newest
Michael.
grandchild.
And whose is this?
Micah,
Becky's.
newest grandchild.
Becky's.
Yeah.
And they're pastoring in
Memphis.
Memphis,
Yeah.
Tennessee. It's quite a story. Now, how's Sri Lanka doing?
Sri Lanka's doing good.
Just got a few images from your trip with Anne-Marie.
Right.
Right after that terrible event in Boxing Day of 2004.
That's that picture there. That's when we went out there and we collected some funds. You went back and you bought some boats for the people who lost theirs, built some houses there. This is a tea plantation. This is what the country looks like.
Is that Daryl doing the shooting there?
Yes.
Anne-Marie's husband.
Yeah. And this is the day that we were handing over. You can see the houses at the back there with flags. This is what we built for tsunami people. And that was the bare land before we built. And so then afterwards, when I prayed, God said to me, you have to tackle this in 3 ways. First, it will have to be emergency help. Then after that, it will be rehabilitation, then development. So that's what we did.
Love Lanka Development International. Is that
Christian International.
Christian International. And I'm just blown away with your own report. In your extended family, which
Right.
are still Buddhist, you have had so many come to Christ.
Right.
One of your nephews is pastoring a church in the 2nd largest city, heading up a church planting movement.
Yes.
And the tsunami is directly tied to a lot of the heart change you are seeing.
Yeah. So what happened was when we went to Sri Lanka to do the work there, we worked with people, built those houses. They came back. I felt God telling me it's not right for you to just give hope to these people and not do anything. So we started this church over there, so Love Lanka Missions. And then my nephew, who was actually a police inspector, he gave that up, and he was the second in the family to get born again. he gave that up and he became a pastor, and he's now planting churches. We got 7 churches that he has planted.
This is such an encouraging report, and you really will have to write the book. Thank you, folks, for coming and sharing your romance and God's goodness with us.
Yes, amen. Thank you, Lord.